They say that Hollywood is dead and streaming killed it. I gotta say, I highly disagree with that statement.
Very difficult to write a short film. I think in some ways it's harder than for a feature to have a complete idea in just a few minutes.
Christopher Nolan once said that it's harder to make a short film than it would be for a feature-length film because it's harder to tell a concise story and really flesh out these character arcs with such a short period of time. When you think about a full-length film, they're typically an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, and I can't help but think that sometimes it's actually to their benefit to have a little bit more time. It's typically viewed as a bad thing that the entire media landscape has changed to fit a more streamable landscape, but I'd ask you to take a look at some of the great projects we've been getting because of this media landscape in the form of an 8-episode miniseries. Monster, Chernobyl, Band of Brothers, Fargo, and a ton of others. It seems as if this 8-episode format is perfect for telling a compelling story. And as it turns out, most of these installments come from HBO, who've been killing it for a very long time now. Most notably with True Detective Season 1 and, just recently, The Penguin. Feature films will remain its own art form and is a different tool for a different job. But now that we're getting new limited series turned over faster than McDonald's hamburgers, I see this as nothing but a pure positive. I'm someone that loves a good character study, and I haven't seen a better art form and a better medium to be able to carry out a character's growth, to reach a larger audience, to be able to take bigger risks, and to be able to tell a story with some nuance and patience and maturity without having to shove things down people's throat like they're stupid. Whether we realize it or not, there's a certain social contract that we're signing up for when we watch a film, a limited series, or a full 8-season series. We're agreeing to trade a few hours of our time and attention with the filmmaker in hopes that we're in good hands and that he has a concise vision that's going to make sense in the end. The filmmaker has an obligation to keep our full attention throughout the entire experience. When we agree to watch a miniseries, the social contract is still there, but it's a bit different. By watching the miniseries, we're already agreeing that we're going to spend a lot more time with these characters, pay more attention, and the filmmaker's able to tell his story across 8 different episodes instead of condensing that down into a much smaller window. So you can see how the type of project greatly impacts the manner of which the story is told. And as these things get more and more popular, they're going to start drawing film-like budgets. If they have the same exact audience size but 5 times the watch time, these limited series are going to become films with a 450-page script.
It was 8 episodes. All right, so it was basically, I looked at it as a 450-page script.
Take one of my favorite shows, for example, True Detective Season 1. Now, this show is a pioneer because prior to this, big-name actors like Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson wouldn't have generally gravitated towards a miniseries or television at all. They looked at that like a step backwards. But nowadays, you're seeing A-list actors gravitate towards this space. They see it as dignified work.
There wasn't a bunch of huge movie stars that were taking TV shows where that is happening now. I have a feeling a lot more huge movie stars are going to go back into television. You set the gold standard. Dan and I talk about this first season of True Detective all the time. I mean, it is a masterpiece.
And yes, it's TV, and you're right. Not a lot of actors in me and Woody's position were going into television at that time. But it was much less taboo than maybe it used to be. But it was still sort of taboo.
Nowadays, people are gravitating towards these miniseries to show what they can really do. And it's because of this show, True Detective Season 1, regarded as one of the best seasons of television of all time. It's one of the best told stories you'll ever see. And even with Matthew McConaughey having knockout performances like Dallas Buyers Club, Interstellar, and others, his performance in True Detective is considered his best and most personal performance to date, on par with a Daniel Day-Lewis from There Will Be Blood.
I will never backslide.
I was lost, but now I am found.
I was lost, but now I'm found.
I have abandoned my child. Say it louder.
I've abandoned my child! I've abandoned my child! I've abandoned my boy!
And rivals some of the best Oscar-winning performances of all time. It set a new standard for what it means to be a serious actor. In a day and age where Hollywood is putting out the same bullshit over and over with little to no complexity to their characters, True Detective was a breath of fresh air for people that love a good, complex, well-told story. And it wasn't a movie, it was a TV series. And he was the battering ram to break down the door for other actors to follow suit. At the Emmy Awards that year, Bryan Cranston, in the role of Walter White of all people, said that Matthew McConaughey was the obvious pick for the Emmy and that he would have voted for him too.
Even I thought about voting for Matthew.
I say all of this to say that Hollywood isn't dead. It's just changed a little bit. TV writing was often different than film writing, where they had a reputation for beating people over the head with themes, not being subtle at all. Their job was to appeal to as wide of an audience as possible. It wasn't very often that you got a Breaking Bad or a Sopranos type show, because studios were afraid that audiences wouldn't relate to the characters. They actually used to say, how would audiences possibly relate to this middle-aged man that's a failure in life, that gets cancer and becomes a big meth kingpin? There's no way audiences would connect with that at all. They didn't seem to understand that we don't necessarily want a one-to-one recreation of our lives. We want a character that provokes thought, and it seemed like only movies were doing this. The art of creating a character like this is showing their humanity in subtle ways underneath the mask, to the point where we can ask ourselves that maybe if we were in the same circumstances, we can see why you made these decisions. There's something hyper relatable about a character like Rust Cohle, even through his nihilistic and absurdist view on the world. Since we were able to get to know this character so intimately across 8 episodes, we might not agree with how he handles things and how he views the world, but we definitely understand where he's coming from, and there's something so human about him that we can't help but attach to. They weren't trying to tell a story about a relatable hero that everybody can aspire to be. They were telling a story about Rust Cohle.
Doesn't matter if they're dead or alive, you can still read them. They welcomed it right there in the last instant. It's an unmistakable relief. See, because they were afraid, and now they saw for the very first time how easy it was to just let go. Finally know that you didn't have to hold on so tight. To realize that all your life, not all your love, all your hate, all your memory, all your pain, it was all the same thing. It was all the same dream, a dream that you had inside a locked room. A dream about being a person.
So how he acts makes complete sense for his character since we know his history. And his history was never expressly conveyed to us through flashbacks or long tangents. It was all revealed naturally over time as if we were getting to know this character alongside Marty, which of course isn't exactly how they handle things in movies, where we often get long exposition scenes that serve to push the narrative forward. Flashback is often used in these films because they don't have a lot of time to subtly convey information.
Where am I? You're at Gateway Station. Been here a couple of days.
Exposition isn't always bad, but when it's used at its worst, it's so noticeable.
I'm glad to see you feeling a little better. They tell me that all the weakness and disorientation should pass soon. It's just natural side effects of such an unusually long hypersleep.
How long was I out there?
This might be a shock to you. It's longer.
How long?
57 years. What happened was you had drifted right through the core systems, and it's really just blind luck that a deep salvage team found you when they did.
Like everything that he just discussed could probably be an entire movie on its own, and then it's just revealed over dialogue, which sometimes is effective, as I've said. It's only really a problem when the character should already know the information being given, or it doesn't make sense for them to discuss in the manner that they are. Hello, John, my best friend that I've known for 15 years. Remember when you went into the military for 4 years and then your mother died? But there's something so sweet about having all of the proper context and build up for a situation to really hit. Think about the Avengers movies. They have such a hard impact because of all of the setup that we've gotten from each individual character over the course of time. But in this show, we get something very different, and the payoff is us feeling like we understand the motivation behind everything that this character does. Here's a small example where Rust and Marty are sitting at the bar together, and Marty had just cheated on his wife, pretty much destroying his family.
And I just need her to give me another shot.
At this point in the show, the characters are pretty close. They've been through a lot together, so you would expect somebody to console him, maybe give him encouraging words, but that wouldn't be in character for Rust Cohle.
Just get another shot.
This ain't gonna tell you something. Yeah, this is none of my business. I wanna hear it.
Now, Rust is somebody that had a family, but his child died, ruining his marriage. Rust spent 4 years undercover afterwards, spiraling out of control and pretty much losing faith in humanity. The only thing that was tethering him to the rest of humanity was his family and his love for his child. But once that was taken away from him, he really had no connection to the rest of the world.
Feels like it smooths out the other parts of my life most of the time.
One more time, it's none of my fucking business.
Yeah, fuck.
Enough with the self-improvement, penance, hand-wringing shit.
He's felt like an outside observer ever since. So because we know all of this, we expect Rust to be hypercritical of Marty. Marty has everything that Rust lost, but yet he takes it for granted. So of course Rust doesn't treat this so kindly.
Fuck. Hell of a bedside manner you got, Rust.
You know, being stupid is different than calling in sick, and this is a bar, not a fucking bedside.
Friend in need.
But you can tell that the reason he responded that way is motivated by something. Even though this is an unrelatable action, it makes complete sense for him to act this way. And since we've gotten to know where this character is coming from over the course of this series, every time there's a situation where maybe he's acting a little absurd, the people in the scene don't quite get it, but us as observers, we completely understand.
Time I think you hit a ceiling, you just keep raising the bar. You are like the Michael Jordan of being a son of a bitch.
If you take a look at any scene with Rust Cohle in it and you put it in isolation, you might think that he's a bad person. You would come to the conclusion that you're not so sure about this guy, he might actually be evil, but it's because of the context and it's because we've gotten to know this character so personally that we understand where he's coming from. He's got a twisted worldview, but there's something so human about it, so real and almost impressive that he's able to confront these darker parts about himself and understand who he is and accept it when most people run from it, such as his counterpart Marty, who's equally as compelling, equally as complicated, but doesn't quite know where he stands in the universe. He pretends to not really care, but there's something existential about Marty as well, and probably the reason why he attracts so much to Rust Cohle. He often gives Rust a hard time, inquiring about his worldview, almost forcing it out of him, and then immediately shutting him down, telling him that he's crazy, as if he's thinking if he could only disprove Rust Cohle, then he would be able to disprove the nothingness of life, and he's never quite able to do it. The more we get to know Rust, the more we get pulled into his world. And while we might not agree with the things he does, we definitely understand why he does it. Take this scene for example, where Rust Cohle is interrogating someone who killed their own child. As an audience, we know that this is a hard-hitting issue for him. The only time he was really able to connect and value life at a human level. That was all taken away from him, so for this person to have intentionally killed their own child, Rust looks at that as the most evil someone can possibly do.
I lost one myself, Charmaine. I lost a marriage too.
Watching this, you're not 100% sure whether he's sympathizing or manipulating, but everything's made clear towards the end of this interaction.
You see, sometimes people mistake a child as an answer, like a way to change their story. Exactly 4:49 a.m. The sleep apnea monitor that was hooked up to your child was unplugged. Charmaine, I need you to talk to me about some things.
He gets the job done, the confession and the signature, but in true Rust Cohle fashion, he provokes you to question your own moral compass as well as his.
The newspapers are gonna be tough on you. And prison is very, very hard on people who hurt kids. If you get the opportunity, you should kill yourself.
He stares directly in her soul after saying it to let her know that he's being completely serious. We know the motivation, so therefore we can connect to his humanity even though he's not really acting within the accepted social confines.
What do you think the average IQ of this group is, huh?
Can you see Texas up there on your high horse? What do you know about these people?
See a propensity for obesity, poverty, a yen for fairy tales. Folks putting what few bucks they do have in the little wicker baskets being passed around. I think it's safe to say that nobody here is going to be splitting the atom, Marty.
Your fucking attitude. Not everybody wants to sit alone in an empty room beating off the murder manuals.
Aside from the witty banter between Rust and Marty, one of my favorite moments in the entire series comes from episode 4, where Rust is forced to go undercover and infiltrate a biker gang so that he can gain their trust and get a drop on their suspect.
They're looking to trade, right? Coke for meth.
At this point in the series, you're aware that Rust struggles with addiction and that he went through a traumatic 4-year process where he was undercover, basically having to turn himself into the very monster that he sought so hard to take down.
Do some just for you, some just for me. Uh-huh. What'd you cut it with?
You see, You dig it?
So this is a pretty big moment when you see Rust having to fall back into the same habits that he fought so hard to get away from, and that he was relieved he never had to relive again. When Rust had to take the random drug substance that was on the biker guy's hand, the look in his eyes where he tries to maintain composure and continue selling the lie that he's trying to craft.
And you dress the part still? That's just an act. When in Rome, brother. But I do clean up real fucking pretty. Motherfucker, I need a gunslinger. Now, you ain't too timid. Get on this shit with me, and then we can talk about doing business. Where?
They did a damn good job of putting you in his shoes through this experience. The suspense that's built up, the paranoia, the fear, the anxiety, mixed with the fact that he was on this random drug that he snorted, not knowing exactly what it is, but having all of his senses shot up to 100%.
All right, 30 seconds in and out, 30 seconds in and out.
Get that safe on.
Watch it, I'll nuke you, motherfucker.
Fucking mouth shut. It's Christmas time, Crash. We got this shit.
Easy, in and out, in and out, in and out. Stay calm. Get it, Ginger. Get the fuck out of here.
Ginger, they are gathering out there. Come on, Ginger.
The sound design is really what sells it. There's people huddling up outside. You see their figures pop up through the window. There's tension rising from every corner of the house. He can't keep a lid on it. He doesn't know what to do next until everything breaks into chaos and he has to let his instincts take over.
I told you, crackhead.
Do not fire. No, don't fucking fire. Do not fire.
And the best part is this scene was done all in one shot. It's one of those scenes. So as everything turns to shit, Rust is desperately trying to figure out how to get out of this situation, and the camera's following him throughout the entire thing with no cuts.
Marty, okay. I need you to be at Amelia Street between 18th and 19th in 90 seconds. You got it? 90 seconds, motherfucker!
Some people speculate as to them using cutaway techniques, but according to the cast and crew, this scene truly is an all-in-one shot scene, which is beyond impressive. There's no words that I can really use to explain the suspense that's built up. It's just really well done. And if they can create moments like this in a miniseries, I have high hopes for the future. It's not like they had a huge budget for this production, they just cared about it. So imagine the right talent, the right cast and crew, projects being greenlit that actually mean something with people that care. Imagine a Christopher Nolan or a Martin Scorsese putting all of their resources into an 8-episode format as if it were one of their movies. That's something to get excited about.
The big challenge that I had was, boy, you're gonna have to be really patient. Because if we have a 450-page script, and most film scripts are 120, most film scripts, the Act 1 turn, Act 2 is page 32. And this is like page 150. The 1995 Cole, where I made some choices to keep him sort of that stoic guy that he is. I had a couple times where I was like, is this gonna be really boring? Because, man, I've been doing the same iconic thing. And I started to feel like maybe certain scenes, I was like, maybe I need to spice it up. I was like, no. If you hold your line here, McConaughey, the dynamic will show. So a lot of it for me was patience.
So you can see how McConaughey's instincts from working on movies were challenged a little bit, and he could really map out who this character was. Talking to my buddy Skylar. Skylar, I just wanted to ask you how you felt about the series True Detective. You're somebody that's watched both True Detective and The Penguin, so.
McConaughey, one of my favorite actors, period. Definitely up there with his best roles, especially it being a show. Guy made me want to be a fucking detective in Louisiana and smoke cigarettes in the corn. The show has enough power to make a man want to do that. It'll be pretty good regardless, movie or show, but trying to like break shit down and take something away.
As I said before, prior to this show, big name actors that were normally in Hollywood movies didn't want to go to the silver screen, as they called it. They saw that as taking a step backwards. Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey showed the world that that didn't have to be the case, and attracted the attention of Colin Farrell, who gave it a shot. Colin Farrell still did a wonderful job, and it seems to be the reason he was inspired to take part in one of the most popular shows on television right now, which is the highly acclaimed, super successful Penguin, another great miniseries. really good. And that was back in 2014. So now we're seeing things like The Penguin. We got The Last of Us TV show. We've got Fargo, Chernobyl, leading into something like The Penguin, which just recently came out, super popular.
Oh, I loved The Penguin. I wasn't a big fan of the ending, but I kind of see why they had to end it like that. They did so good on the show that it took the very last scene for you to like get remembered that Penguin's a fucking villain, because you kind of start to feel for the dude because they go so much into the character's background so good too.
Now this one's unique because this miniseries is tied directly in the Matt Reeves cinematic universe for Batman, and they were able to pull off something very special. They were somehow able to attach us to this character that nobody saw as somebody gripping. Writers were able to manipulate all of us into seeing his perspective under false pretenses just to break our hearts in the end when we realize that the protagonist of the story doesn't have to be the hero. Just because we spent the most time with him and we understand where he's coming from doesn't mean we have to agree or like where he's coming from. And that's what I think they did so well. And a lot of us were fooled into mistaking that for compassion. Just because someone has a sympathetic reason for being the way they are doesn't excuse the behavior and all of a sudden make them some sort of martyr. Serial killers often have a tragic backstory with abuse in their childhood. You see the most heinous things done under the guise of them being crafted that way from birth, but does that really give them an out? Does it make them a sympathetic character when you have the full context? I like that they didn't lay all their cards on the table in the first episode. They allowed us to see him through the lens of other people around him, and only in the final episode gave us a full taste of who we were dealing with this entire time. Throughout the show, Oz is constantly manipulating everyone around him, and we saw that as a positive trait, the fact that he was able to outsmart people for his own benefit, because we knew what his inevitable goals were, and we could see the human side of him that just wanted more for himself, somebody that wanted to be a leader within his community, to matter. That's something we can all get behind, and we use that as a justification for all the monstrous things we've seen him do. At the end of the series, the writers made you feel like you were personally betrayed by this character, like finally we were the victim of the Oz charm, and only then did we take it seriously that this is not a good person that we're dealing with. It's masterfully done because a lot of people didn't care for the ending. They were stuck feeling like they were personally betrayed, but that was all intentional.
I beat you, Sal. You hear me? I beat you. I win. The fuck? You're supposed to destroy me, Sal. You know, show me what a big man you are, what a fucking big man you are. Huh? Well, I got you. I fucking got you. You filthy, stupid prick.
There's so many good things I can say about this series. Colin Farrell as an actor, outstanding. I can't say anything that hasn't already been said about his performance. The side characters like Sophia Falcone and Victor, they were really well done. Although I saw the ending coming from a mile away with Victor just because I'm a big Sopranos guy. But I definitely didn't think that it would have happened in the same exact way.
I mean, that's the thing about family. Oz, it's your strength. Oz, when it drives you. Fuck if it don't make you weak, too.
The show is not perfect though, it's pretty tropey at times. At some points in the series, you can tell that they put a little bit less of a cinematic effort into it, probably due to the changing of the directors and writers throughout the show. But it's important to note that it felt like a unified vision the entire time, like it was always building to something more grand. So much talent was involved in this production, and I really can't picture something like this being made 10, 20 years ago. Studios wouldn't have been behind it. All we used to get were crummy CW shows, and we all know how I feel about those pieces of shit. But we're finally in a space where we can get a cinematic level character study on a previously throwaway character like the Penguin, who is now a big part of the pop culture discussion today. And it seems like we might even get more miniseries out of the Matt Reeves universe, with shows like The Last of Us, which models one of the best video games of all time. I'm very excited to see what filmmakers have in store for us the rest of 2024 and into 2025. Nobody used to think that video games games could be a valid form of storytelling until we got things like The Last of Us, Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, and plenty others I probably don't even have to tell you guys at this point. These direct-to-streaming service productions are pretty much indistinguishable from actual high-budget Hollywood movies, and my argument is that that's a good thing. We're moving into an environment where pretty much everything is going to be direct-to-streaming at some point soon. They might premiere it in the theaters for a little bit, but the main draw is going to be streaming services. Majority of people watch their media that way now anyways. If it's not on streaming services, it pretty much doesn't exist these days, which is a good and a bad thing. But it's important to look at the good, because the good is that we're getting more creative projects, more people have access to the industry, things are more streamlined, more people are able to see these projects. But I've been very happy with the way that HBO in particular has handled their integration to the new media landscape. It's just a changing time, and I wanted to highlight how special these stories are within that structure and how you could expect to get more of that in the future. Nothing beats going to the theater, nothing beats that theatrical release, nothing beats a good feature film, but I think you'd be hard struck to show me a character that's as compelling as Russ Cole in True Detective. Let me know what you guys think though. Maybe I'm overly optimistic. I want to hear some feedback. But anyways, guys, I'll see you later. Subscribe, like the video, please. And in the theme of the 8-episode miniseries, comment the number 8 down below. Other people that didn't make it to the end will be confused, but I want to know who made it to the very end. You guys are the best. You have good attention spans. You're good in my book. Have a wonderful day.